Dr. Christy Taylor, founder of WORxK Global News Magazine and WORxK Solutions LLC, and I am so excited to kick off our Changemaker Interview Series with author Kim Lengling. She's a multi-published author who shares her love of nature, animals, and her life living with PTSD, and her mission to toss out nuggets of hope through her writing and podcast. She is the lead author and coordinator of 6 anthologies, with the third Paw Prints on the Front Porch coming late 2025. Now, the Paw Prints series is a series focused on individuals sharing their stories of how their pets enrich their lives. Her newest book, which we're going to talk about today along with that series, Nuggets of Hope, was released on November 15, 2024. She hosts the podcast Let Fear Bounce, spotlighting people who have faced and overcome personal fears to make a difference in their slice of the world through writing, coaching, film production, music, philanthropy, teaching, founding nonprofits, public speaking, or simply being an amazing human being. And that you are, Kim. And you can regularly find Kim drinking coffee, reading, and taking long walks with her dog, Dexter. Kim, this is, I am so excited to kick this series off with you today, because we really at WORxK Global News and WORxK Solutions, we focus on highlighting change makers. And I'm just really excited to embrace and hear your story and how you're making a difference. So I'm going to turn it over to you for a quick word, and then we're going to kick this interview off.
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. I've really been looking forward to this. And I love sharing the stories of how, other people or things that have happened in my life have changed the trajectory or how I look at the world or view people, and how others have impacted my life to help me. They've been nuggets of hope to me. So super excited to share part of that journey with you.
Well, thank you so much, Kim. Here at WORxK Solutions, we really focus on 2 things, and that is career and resiliency. We combine those because we realize that life is not always this picturesque or windy road. It is the windy road, not the picturesque life that some of us can imagine. So I'm just really excited to kick this interview off with you. And that actually goes right into our first question. So after your story is one of hope and how you've turned things around in dealing with your own journey. And just reading a little bit about you, you lost your job in 2020 and you decided to create your own path through writing and public speaking. Can you share a little bit more about that decision-making process and how you overcame the initial challenges?
It's interesting because it was all kinds of things happening at once, and losing my job just seemed to be like the culmination of it all. I had been feeling really sick for over a year, and no one could figure out why. I was losing weight. My hair was falling out. My skin was turning scaly like a snake. It was just so odd. And I just felt horrible. And doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And COVID came. So we were all locked down for a few weeks. And I was sitting there thinking, is this really what it's all about? Me feeling horrible every day. And I was living in fear because I'm like, I don't know why I'm losing so much weight without trying. I can't eat. Everything makes me sick. And it was a frightening time, actually. And finally, the doctors figured out, oh, you have a rare and uncommon form of diabetes. And I went, what are you talking about? And as that's all going on, and I start, I'm now insulin dependent, and I have to change my whole life and how I look at food. And that was very stressful. And in the midst of all of that, COVID's happening and I lose my job because of COVID. Like I was one of millions of people that lost their jobs because of that. So there was another bam, felt like a shovel to the face. And you're like, okay, how can life, be like this? And then I thought, Kim, quit whining, pull up your big girl pants, take a deep breath, and you're going to be fine. Give yourself 24 hours to be angry. And I did. And I did it really well for 24 hours. I did the anger really well. And after that, the next day I woke up and I'm sitting on the edge of my bed in the morning. I'm like, all right, 24 hours is done. Time to keep on keeping on, Kim. Pull up your big girl panties. Let's go. What do you like to do? What are you passionate about? And what are you good at? And let's make something happen. And that was the beginning for me. Those 3 questions I asked myself, because I pretty much kicked my own self in the butt. Said, I'm not going to sit here and wallow in self-pity. I have never been one to hold up the woe is me card, and I never will be. And so I was like, my 24 hours of being angry is done. Felt good to do that, to go outside and yell at the trees every once in a while. But then I was done with it. Let it go, let it bounce, look forward. So that's what I did. I asked myself those 3 questions and decided to sit down. I'm like, all right, what do you like to do? What are you good at? And what do you have a passion for?
I love that because, it's easy to wallow and it takes a certain strength to actually do a lot of self-talk where we say, I got to get out of this cycle. A lot of times when I'm talking to clients, that's part of my job as a coach, and I'm sure you've experienced too, is helping people off that hamster wheel. Now, over the last few years, as part of that bounce back, you've been pretty successful. You've built a podcast, you wrote books, which we're going to talk about. But I want to first focus on your Let Fear Bounce podcast. Tell us a little bit more about that and what role has fear played in your journey. And I want to talk about the success of this podcast because obviously people find this so relatable.
It was that day, that morning, sitting on the edge of my bed after my day of being angry. And I asked myself those 3 questions. And it was so funny because, I am a person of faith. I have a strong faith. Mm-hmm. And I had this little nudge saying, I had said, I'm letting this bounce. It's just going to bounce. And I'm like, what can I do with that? And then this just like question in my head, what's this podcasting stuff? And I know it's been around for years, but I worked outside the home. I was a road warrior in sales and marketing for over 20 years. So I didn't listen to podcasts. I honestly didn't know much about them. So I literally Googled how to podcast that day. That's how I Googled it, how to podcast, and looked into it. And on my old laptop with an old crappy camera and no nice microphone, just the one that was on my old laptop, I sat there and recorded my first episode of Let Fear Bounce, not really having a clue what I was doing. I didn't know how to edit, didn't know how to do any of that. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to keep on doing it. And I didn't have money to go and spend on stuff either because I just lost my job, and I was going to end up being on unemployment for the first time in my life. I had never been in that situation. So I'm like, all right, Kim, you're going to use what you have, and we're going to see how we can make this happen. It wasn't easy. Gosh, no. Super bumpy, still pretty scary every once in a while when you're thinking, am I going to be able to make this? Can I keep on going with this? Should I? And you have all that self-doubt coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's the D-man coming in. I just let him in the back door again. I just got to flick him off my shoulder.
I love that, calling it the demon. Now, when listeners are tuning into your podcast, what are some of the topics that you cover? I know it's obvious fear, right? But what are some of the typical topics that people can expect to hear from a broader perspective?
Well, folks, everybody's lives, gosh, they have so much stuff that goes on in their lives, but there are amazing. Every person's amazing. And the folks that I have been blessed to have on my show, I had recently a mother who lost her son to gun violence.
Oh, wow.
And how she moves forward from that. I had a New York Times bestselling author, blind, and he escaped one of the towers on 9/11, with his dog, his seeing eye dog. Amazing story. I have a Emmy award-winning documentarist, if that's a word, filmmaker. I don't know. He makes documentaries, but he's won like 6 or 7 Emmys for them. That's Emmys for movies, isn't it? And his is all of his documentaries are about hope, and he goes down into this. He goes into the seedy underground of stuff and finds the nuggets of hope there. It's just so those folks. And then, you've got just people like me coming on, sharing their story. I've had veterans on talking about their story of how they've been able to live with their PTSD symptoms or other things. Everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And I would say all of them that I've had have been beautiful souls, and they are all tossing out nuggets of hope in their own way. A gentleman who lost his wife very young, I think in their 30s, to brain cancer. And there he was, all of a sudden, a widow with 2 young daughters under the age of 5.
Wow.
And his sons, I'm sorry, he has 2 sons. They said, they wanted to make sunshine baskets. So bright yellow stuff. And the kids, and they decided, okay, let's take some of these baskets that my kid made and we'll take them to the hospital and give them to other people that are going through cancer treatments. Well, it's turned into a national thing years later. And I think they're called the Hope Baskets. So people like that, everybody has something, because we don't get through this life unscathed. You know that.
Exactly.
But my mission is to just, by tossing out nuggets of hope through my podcast, writing, words, whatever, that folks don't sit there and wallow. That is so easy to do. It would be so easy to just not answer the phone, don't answer the door, don't take a shower, just get by. But that's not how we're meant to be. We're not on this planet to just get by.
Exactly. One of the things I really love about listening to you is just with each question that I'm asking you, I'm also learning. And these are things that, as a coach, I tell my clients, but I think it's also good to just listen, and because we're human and we can continuously learn. One of the things that I'm always saying is start where you are. And I absolutely love the fact that you, when it started this podcast, I just came back from, I came back from a deployment in 2023 and said, hey, I am going to just start speaking. Right. And here we are. I think before we jumped on this, I said, over the past year, I worked with 70 people. Right. And it's just, you have to start where you are and be willing to take the faith to do what you want to do. Now, speaking of deployments and being in the military, I'm reading here that we are both veterans. I just celebrated 17 years in the Air Force the day before yesterday. So what about you? I'm as a fellow veteran, I can really just truly appreciate the importance of giving back to our veteran community, and how you're just going about allowing people to tell their stories. And you work with Project Support our troops in inspiring. Your work is inspiring. So how has your military experience really shaped your approach to advocacy, and what does it mean to you to continue supporting veterans? And I'm a big advocate of that, because I feel like, as a veteran myself, and I'm not going to tell a story like I went, that I'm a combat veteran, because my deployment was to CENTCOM. Okay. So I was in what we call in the Air Force Tampa stand, but I had a chance to work, on some great things at Central Command. But I, of course, as an operations officer, I've had a lot of troops who are deployed, who've seen a lot of things, right? So I just love the work and so much respect. Now, I want to make sure I don't go on my soapbox. My greatest respect is always for military people, not only someone who is serving, has served, but also I know that the climb up the mountain to military rank, whatever your rank is or statue, you didn't just get there. The general, usually he was a lieutenant, or maybe that chief master sergeant at one point was an airman, but that is years of experience and expertise. And this is, I get on this soapbox of always having the greatest respect for those of us who serve, because I know that your rank, your titles, the things that you've done, it comes hard earned. So in the work that you do with Project Support our troops, tell us a little bit about that and your experiences and your advocacy work for veterans.
Well, first off, thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
I was Air Force as well.
Thank you. Okay.
Yay.
The best branch.
You'll probably agree with me, but because I was stationed stateside too, I was not in any combat zone. But it changes. At least this is okay. I'll just reword that. The folks that I met and things that I did as part of my job while serving changed my view of how I view the world and people. And the camaraderie, the brotherhood, sisterhood that's formed is a very real thing. And civilians, I'm not being negative, won't get it unless you've been there, done that.
Yeah.
And when I am so involved in my veteran post, I'm actually a life member of a veteran post called Veterans of the Vietnam War, which I'm too young to be a Vietnam veteran, but they're open to all honorably discharged veterans. I'm considered the kid. Here I am in my mid-50s, and they still call me the kid. God bless them. So they can call me kid as long as they want to. But years ago, what was it 25 years ago now? We've been doing it for 25 years. We sent off a few boxes to family members of the post that were deployed overseas somewhere. And there were just little small boxes with, candy, chocolate, whatever. And the responses that we got back were just so beautiful and so heartfelt. And we're like, we just sent, a small box of candy. But it was so humbling to get their thank yous. And then we thought, maybe we should do this more. Maybe we should expand this a little bit. And then 9/11 happened. And so that was in 98. So, and then 9/11 happened a few years later. And all of a sudden, myself and at that time, the commander's wife, we looked at each other and said, there's going to be a lot of people deploying. This world has changed just like that on a dime today. There's going to be a lot of people deploying. I think we're going to have to, we think we're going to have to bump this up. Now we know what our mission is. And we went crazy asking for donations, and they just poured in. And if you remember those first few years, this country was so patriotic. Everybody loved one another. They were all standing for each other, not against each other.
Yeah, I joined. I was a kid, and I joined in 2002. And
okay.
Speaking of that camaraderie, I just think about like what you just said there. I got out for 6 years, and I had no intention of coming back in. But it's exactly what you said. There's a level of camaraderie amongst military people that nobody else understands. So I get it.
Yeah. So we, for 25 years now, this is our 25th year, and we are sending out boxes each and every month to active duty military that are deployed around the globe. And many of them in very hot spots, especially over the last 25 years. Mm-hmm. And it's just amazing. I mean, I could write probably several books on the experience of the last 25 years and the letters that we've received and the phone calls and emails that we've received from the soldiers themselves, the chaplains. We used to, not as much anymore, which is interesting, but chaplains used to reach out to us and say, hey, one of my guys got a box. I was wondering, I've got this entire group here that are really struggling, a group of Marines. They're struggling. We're in a really hot spot. We're losing a lot of people. Could you put them on your list? And so it just continued to grow and grow like that. And it's been amazing. And we have laughed so hard at some of the emails and letters, and we have sobbed right along with family members as we attended their loved ones' funerals. So it's been quite a journey, but there's one that I would not change. And I will keep on doing it. And Lori and myself, Lori Davis, she's the co-chair. We both co-chair this project together. We've both said over these 25 years, if donations run out and there's no money for postage and there's nothing to send, her and I will sit down and be handwriting letters, because we will not let anyone, at least on our watch, think that they're forgotten out there in a hot place. So,
yeah, we just did for our Christmas party. I took a bunch of cards up to my unit and we did the military card challenge. So, I mean, and people think that it has to be some extravagant way. And then I'm going to move off of this topic so I can ask you more about your books. But, with me, but I just want to put that out there because it really touches my heart. Because people think that, reaching out to military folks has to be something fancy. No, I mean, you can do something even like the cards and the letters, because they really do read those and they appreciate them, especially during times when they're away from their family. So we've talked about your advocacy, your podcast. I want to jump into your books, okay? We can start with your latest book, Nuggets of Hope, but then you can also make some commentary on your paw print series. So start with Nuggets of Hope. Talk about, your favorite pieces of advice for the book, and then just flow directly into, that paw print series. Because, for those of us who have dogs, I have a family dog. So it's my little brother that's at my mom's house.
Yeah, right.
But, we know that these, that even with pets, right, it has a profound impact on us. I remember, I'm just going to say this, I'm going to hand it over to you. I remember about 14 years ago, my mom brought home our first dog. And I was like, okay, I don't know where I was at. I was probably somewhere in Texas teaching, whatever I was doing 14 years ago. It wasn't a big deal to me. I just was kind of like, oh, she got a dog, right? And then fast forward, while I was out in deployed in CENTCOM, he got sick and had to be put down. We cried over that dog like it was, like we had lost a family member. And it was like a year later, right? And we were still in a way crying, upset and missing. So pets have so my mom, obviously she went and got another dog, and it'll never replace our dog Smokey. But I'm just saying that sometimes people underestimate the connectivity of pets, and so here you are passing out nuggets of hope, and you have this series on the impact of pets on our life. Let me allow you to speak to both of them. Start with your latest release, and then circle back to that series.
Okay, Nuggets of Hope. It's a picture of my little book there. And I did it 5x8 this time. So it's kind of a fun little size, the type that you can just shove in your purse or your tote bag and take with you. But I started actually working on this book, Nuggets of Hope, a couple years ago. I guess the premise of it, I was always saying, I'm just a pebble tosser. I would say that all the time because I public speak a lot to different veteran organizations and things like that in my local area. And it's always about hope. And, talking to veterans, that have PTSD, letting them know that there's still hope there. And I'm always like, I'm just a pebble tosser. I just want to toss up my little pebbles of hope. And I said that for years. And then the word nugget came. So I started feeling the word hope constantly, seeing it, reading it, feeling it, getting these little nudges and whispers. And I realized, okay, I'm supposed to do something with hope, but I'm not sure what. So for the last 2 years, it's been a process, and I finally ended up just getting little nuggets of hope, like polished stones with the word hope on them. And I carry them with me. And I am positive that I was nudged to approach people, complete strangers, and just walk up and offer them a nugget of hope. Not talk to them, not exchange names, not exchange stories, just say, excuse me, ma'am, excuse me, sir. I would like to give you a nugget of hope. And I hold up my hand without fail. Dozens and dozens of people later, without fail, every one of them has held their hand out and accepted the nugget of hope that I've provided. And the responses that I've gotten have been amazing. I've had tears, laughter, looks like, who are you, crazy woman? I've had anger. An older gentleman yelled at me loudly in a store in anger, asking me what the hell he had to hope for. And I knew he wasn't angry at me.
No.
And again, it wasn't my job to find out their story. It was just my job. I felt so strongly. And every time this happens, I feel really strongly like, oh, that person's supposed to get a nugget of hope. So I carry these. They're in my pocket. They're in my purse. They're in my car. I carry them with me everywhere. In the last 2 years, that's what I've been doing. And I would come home and write those interactions down. And because some of them were so, oh my goodness, it's like they just hit your soul, some of them. I'd end up sitting in my car crying with my head on my steering wheel, crying after a few of them over the past couple of years, just because their hurt hit me so hard. And I didn't have to talk to them to know that they were hurting. You could just feel it. I'm very empathetic. So it felt like it was just slamming me. And so that's where this book actually came from. So in here, it's just cultivate kindness, tossing out nuggets of hope. You can do it right in your own small slice of the world. And I share some of my interactions. Then I share in their tips and just little things of, it's not hard to be kind. It doesn't cost anything to be kind. Smiling at a stranger is a nugget of hope to someone.
Exactly.
You have no idea what that tiny little interaction can mean to the person who's receiving it. And so that's what the book is about.
What about your Paul series? I mean, a whole anthology.
These have been so fun. It's been a passion project of mine. So there's three. Well, there's going to be three. First one is Paw Prints on the Couch. Second one is Paw Prints on the Kitchen Floor, which was released last August. And the third one is going to be Paw Prints on the Porch. And it's all folks that are sharing stories of their pets, of how they've enriched their lives, and at times even saved their lives. Mm-hmm. For me, my dogs have been truly instrumental in my mental health. I live with PTSD due to an experience I had while serving in the military. And along with that comes depression, anxiety at times, sometimes pretty strong anxiety attacks, nightmares at times. And my dogs intuitively know when to come up and nudge you, or when to lean up against you, come up and lick your hand. And my dog prior to the one I have now had him for 14 years. His name was Digger. He's the one that I still cry about. Like you were mentioning earlier. I got you. I don't know what it was about him, but he was more human than he was dog. But he knew before I did when panic was like boiling and starting to work its way up. And sometimes that would blindside me. He got to the point where he could catch it, and I'd be like, "What do you bite?" He'd come up and he'd be nudging. He's a big dog, 105 pounds. He'd be coming up and nudging me, and if I wouldn't pay attention, he'd like put his body against me, like, "Woman, pay attention." And then I realized, oh, my chest feels tight. Oh God, can't breathe. And and then I'm like, oh. And then I realized what he was doing. He was catching it before I was. So I would just get on the floor with him, wrap my arms around that big old boy. And his fur caught so many tears, and he listened to all of my whining. But he was, the animals can really, truly make a powerful, powerful impact on our lives. And everybody in these books shares that, from, the tiny little teacup Yorkie to, big old Mastiff, or a horse or a cat or a guinea pig, whatever it is. They have a huge impact. And, animals are pure souls. They're pure souls. They don't know how to hate unless they're treated badly. And that's the human's fault.
Now, are these books available on Amazon?
Yes, they are. By golly, they're all available on Amazon, and the third one will be as well. But these are the two right here: Paw Prints on the Couch and Paw Prints on the Kitchen Floor. And so, yes, they are available on Amazon right now, and will be until I don't plan on taking them down anytime soon. But that's been such a journey. And the third one I'm in the works of right now, and actually looking for co-authors. So if anybody out there listening right now is interested and you have a story, there's no fee to participate. I do want to throw that out there. I know some folks charge for anthologies. I do not. Proceeds of the book, after my out of pocket costs are met, any proceeds go to a local non-kill shelter in my area. So they get the money to help those neglected animals in need.
Kim, you really are an amazing person. I'm going to ask you two final questions as we begin to wrap up our interview. My actual last question, and then you can actually follow up because I have my two final questions is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to turn their passion for writing the story? I just love, like, you have a heart for giving, right? You're for giving, and that's what makes change makers unique, right? You have this heart for giving. You were not afraid to step out and just simply start where you are. Even the books that you write, you just surprised me there, saying, oh, it goes back to a non-kill shelter. So you are somebody who's really committed to making a difference. So what advice would you give to someone who's in that space and wants to start writing and storytelling, or just starting a podcast and deal with it, and especially when it comes to dealing with their own fear or self-doubt? And then the final words are, where can people find you, contact you? And of course, we'll put all of your information in the chat, in the description for this episode.
I've had people ask me that so often, to let folks know, give a little nugget of advice or something. I didn't know what I was doing. And I love how you say, just start where you are. That is just perfect. I want to write that on a sticky note and put it on my wall. And that's so true. Just start where you are. Did I think I was a writer? No, I didn't. That came about because I was giving a speech in front of a group of like 800 veterans. I had a big event one time, and the local newspaper editor approached me and said, "You want to write a monthly article for the newspaper?" And I said, "I'm no writer." And he said, "Who wrote your speech?" I said, "I did." And he said, "You're a writer." So someone saw something in me that I didn't even know that I had. And that's how my journey started. It was unintentional. I was an accidental writer. Everybody's got a story. This life that we live, your history in the making, and you're a chapter of it. Holy cow. Look at it that way. You're a chapter in history. Write it down. Even if it's just journaling. You don't have to go and get yourself published if you don't want to. Journal, get that down, share it with your family members, share it with your grandkids, whatever you want to do, but write. Just do it. Just do it. Doesn't have to be perfect. Oh my goodness, my stuff's never perfect, ever. but I do it because I have a passion for it. And I like doing it. And I like sharing the nuggets of hope. And I like sharing, helping others in my anthologies to give them a platform to share their story. So many of the folks in the anthology, they're like, we don't want to be a published author. We don't ever want to write a book, but to have a chapter in a book and say, wow, I'm published in this book. That was all they wanted. And it's super exciting to them. So if that's all you want to do, then do something like that. But just do it. Just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Kim, you're an amazing person. Tell us where people can find you. And of course, again, like I said, we're going to drop your information in the description. But if someone wants to reach out to you, how can they connect with you?
They can. I want to share one more thing super fast. If you're in a down spot, and I share this is my little nugget of hope for you. If you're in a down spot or you're in a dark spot and you don't feel like you can crawl out of it because you're stuck in the muck, look in the mirror at the end of that day, because you're standing in front of the mirror, and tell yourself you have 100% success rate for getting through the tough stuff because you're standing there looking at your own self at the end of another day. You did it. You're awesome. Remember that. Write it down on a sticky note and put it on a wall. You have 100% success rate for getting through the tough stuff. Now, you can find me. My best place is my website, which is just my name, KimLenglingAuthor.com. It's got my books on there, what's coming up. It's got, the anthology that's coming up that you can participate in if you want to, or you're interested in and have questions. My podcast episodes are all on there. And you can also meet Dexter because he's my office manager and he's the one who keeps me in line, and he's my dog. So you can meet him as well. So KimLenglingAuthor.com. And of course, all my books are on Amazon.
All right. Well, Kim, this has been an amazing interview. We are so excited to feature you in WORxK Global News Magazine. We have an article in addition to this podcast episode. There will be a article featuring Kim, and hopefully we have a picture of her dog Dexter that we can add to the article.
I can get you one.
Yeah, we will definitely do that. But this has been exciting, and it goes to show that you can be the change that you want to be. To be a change maker simply just means starting where you are. So Kim, thank you for today's interview, and we are so excited to connect with you and share your information and story with our audience. Thanks for tuning in.
This has been awesome. A blessing. Thank you.
You are very welcome. All right, for those tuning in, have a great day, and go on to WORxGlobalNews.com to learn more about our awesome change makers. And you can also catch Kim's interview on our YouTube page as well as our website. Stay tuned.